This is Garthraw from TacticalGamer.com, bringing you another bite-sized lesson in squad leadership for Planetside 2. Today's lesson is Infantry Squad Leadership. Various types of squads have different strengths and weaknesses that a squad leader must keep in mind in order to be effective. What is suicide for an infantry squad can be a good tactic for an armor squad, and vice versa. Infantry tactics is a subject that could fill a library. This video is intended only to give new squad leaders some basic concepts for leading their infantry squads in Planetside 2. Today I'm going to go over 4 rules for an infantry squad leader. The first rule for infantry squad leadership in Planetside 2 is also the first rule of real estate. You may know this as location, location, location.
Let's stack up for the breach right here by the door. Fats are on point, no nade.
There are 3 things you should be looking for in the location you deploy your infantry squad, which is why I like to say it 3 times. The first location is a location with cover. Infantry lives and dies based on having terrain or buildings that will provide it cover from enemy fire. Rough terrain is not your enemy, it's your friend. It'll keep you alive and allow you to surprise your foe. The second location is somewhere on the flank or rear of the enemy instead of on their front. Flanking an enemy or opening up another direction of fire can surprise them and thereby increase the survivability of your troops. The third location is somewhere within range. That is, somewhere that puts you within 300 meters of the fight, which is generally the limit of effective infantry engagement in Planetside 2. If you're not sure what 300 meters is, look at your map and the grid squares on that map. Each grid square is about 500 meters across and 500 meters top to bottom. Therefore, about half a grid square, or 200 meters, 250 meters, is a good general estimate. So to review, you're looking for location with cover, location on the flank of the enemy, and a location within range of the enemy, or about 300 meters. For instance, in this clip, you can see a tactical gamer squad that is on a mountaintop that gives them cover from all surrounding positions if we just fall back onto the tip, that flanks the enemy's likely avenue of approach if they push through our friendlies, which would be to our east, and that puts us within range of the enemies both to our north or to our east. The second rule of infantry squad leadership is bring a gun to a gunfight
far southeast
and a knife to a knife fight. Essentially, equip your squad for the precise fight that you expect. Unlike armor or aircraft, an infantry squad is relatively easy to rearm and re-equip for the coming combat. Use that to your advantage. Once you have an idea where you want to go, equip your squad for it. If you're planning on dropping the squad on a hillside to engage infantry and armor at a long range, you're going to need long-range rifles and maybe guided rocket launchers, not shotguns and C4. If you're planning on dropping it into the middle of a crowded base to attack a point, shotguns and C4 may be the perfect thing. Tell your squad what equipment they will need to be effective before you move out. At a minimum, tell them they should be ready for either short, medium, or long-range combat. This applies both to particular weapons and also to classes. Use the squad interface within the game to check the class mix in your squad. If the fight changes, re-equip your squad. Re-equipping a squad may take a moment, but it is very disappointing to get your squad into the perfect location and then realize that you left the perfect equipment back at the warp gate. The third rule of infantry squad leadership is to be cautious when crossing open terrain, or, as I like to say it, look both ways before crossing the street.
Bravo 7, Bravo 5,
In the real
Bravo
world,
10.
why do you look both ways before crossing the street? Because the cars on the street are faster than you are, and if you wait until you're in the middle of the street to look around, it's going to be too late. This is the same way infantry must approach any movement across open ground, because enemy vehicles and aircraft are much faster than you are and could attack you on that open terrain without warning. How should you cross open terrain then, given that it is so dangerous? Well, the first question to ask is your squad suppressed? If the enemy is currently firing a high volume of lead at you,
Southeast.
that would mean leaving cover is going to get you killed, or there are several enemy vehicles nearby that may run you over, your squad is effectively unable to
Briggs
move.
shouldn't have a line of sight
Yes,
on
you
us
could
after.
order them to move, but they would likely all die.
Down.
This is a reality that infantry have to accept that armor and air simply don't have to deal with. If you're not suppressed and you can move with some safety, then ask yourself, is this a long or a short move? If it's a long move across very open terrain, for instance the plains of Indar, consider using a vehicle such as a Galaxy or a
Guys, this
Sunderer.
movement is northeast, the
If
corridor
you
to the
must move
northeast.
on foot
Back
for a
to
long
point.
distance across open terrain,
Go.
plan a route that's going to keep you moving from cover to cover. Remember, any rough terrain is your friend. If the distance is only short, say less than 500 meters, there are three main strategies you could use. You could have some of your team provide covering fire while the other half moves. You could employ stealth through a combination of holding your fire and moving behind cover to avoid anyone spotting you. Or third, you could deploy smoke to at least confuse the enemy and give you a little bit of concealment.
Harass for south.
Remember, as an infantryman, avoid open terrain, and if you must cross it cautiously as you would a busy
Why
street.
can't we be friends? You're on
The
point,
final
just northwest
rule
under the
of
bridge.
infantry squad leadership that I'll cover today is fire and movement. This saying applies in different ways to your whole squad, parts of your squad, and individual soldiers, so I'll go over each of those. So let's start with the whole squad. The squad as a whole should be moving regularly. You should never leave your squad in one position for too long.
Lightning rear.
If you're doing well, taking out a lot of enemy, consider moving to a better position to improve your fire base, or consider advancing directly on the enemy to exploit the success you've just
Shield,
had.
The advance. If anyone has smoke, put it on the bridge in front of us.
If you're doing badly, or believe you're soon going to be doing badly, consider moving while you still can to avoid annihilation. Of course, there is an exception to this if your squad is holding a capture point that has to be held at all costs, or you're pinned down, but otherwise your squad shouldn't sit still too long, because if you stand still, a smart enemy will bring in armor or air power and eventually destroy you. An infantry squad will never have the raw strength of tanks or the raw killing power of coordinated aircraft, so
That'll
5
work,
minutes
guys.
is a
Let's
good
have
rule
it
of
for
thumb.
breakfast.
This also applies to parts of your squad. That is, one part of your squad can be firing at the enemy, as another part of your squad is moving, maybe flanking the enemy. And finally, at the
Also,
individual
significantly
level,
weakened enemy, they're
your troops
diverting a lot
should
of
be
their force towards
accustomed
us now. It
to
might be good for
moving
the
a short distance, firing a few shots, and continuing moving, so that you can combine essentially effectively engaging the enemy and maneuvering all at once. To review, the focus of an infantry squad leader in Planetside 2 should be first to locate good cover from which he can engage the enemy. That is, location, location, location. Second, the infantry squad leader should make sure his squad or her squad is correctly equipped for the fight that awaits them. That is, bring a gun to a gunfight. Third, the infantry squad leader should determine how to safely insert his or her infantry at that location. That is, look before crossing the street. Once the squad arrives, the squad leader should constantly reevaluate their position and maneuver as needed to engage the enemy. That is, deploy fire and movement. Thank you for your time. If you liked this video and you're interested in some organized teamwork, you can visit us at tacticalgamer.com or join one of our squads on Emerald.